Jets reporter Rich Cimini. C.J. Mosley having an MRI later today on an injured groin. Quinnen Williams in a walking boot. Head coach Adam Gase says neither likely to practice on Wednesday, would not go beyond that. And then from our Ravens reporter, Jamison Hensley, John Harbaugh says it's a possibility more than a probability when asked if CB cornerback Jimmy Smith with a knee sprain could be placed on IR, designated to return. Well, despite all the hype and hyperbole, the Cleveland Browns looked anything like the potential Super Bowl contending team many suggested they would be. The Titans manhandled the Browns 43-13. Then they headed out of town amid some hype of their own. Here's the reaction post-game.
It's extremely difficult. You know, anytime you get something going, you shoot yourself in the foot. That was our big problem today, not being able to build on positive plays. And, you know, like I preached last week, was trying to eliminate the negative ones. And that's exactly the opposite of what we did today, and that falls back on me.
They sleep on us every year. What's new? That's a question you already knew, but we like being under the radar. They were who we thought they were. If you want to crown them, crown them. They still got to play football. Today we showed we play better football.
Could lack of playing time in the preseason have something to do with it?
Man, don't ask me no question like that.
Okay.
It was not the result we wanted, period, but it was amazing. Step on the field. I know there's been losing around here, but that's not what we're here to do. So we just got to have everybody stick with us, the fans as well. And this team has to come together, and we just got to play better.
Well, overreaction Monday, and no situation sets us up better than this, probably because the expectations were so high. Some of that's on our end, of course. But again, overreaction Monday. Mike Tannenbaum joining us now, just in time for the good stuff. The Browns aren't who we thought they were. We'll all channel our inner Denny Green. Overreaction, Mike, or no?
I don't think it is. I always had concerns about how they were constructed. Specifically, you look at their offensive tackles, Greg Robinson and Chris Hubbard. One of the game-changing plays yesterday was the matchup against Cam Wake when they gave up a safety. Their offensive line is a big question mark. They lost their best offensive lineman in Kevin Zeitler. So while they've done a remarkable job with their skill players and their defensive front seven in particular, I have concerns about their offensive line. And when you look at their quarterback, Baker Mayfield, since the start of 2018, is tied for the most interceptions in the league with Ben Roethlisberger. So he's young. He has a ways to go. But I'm concerned about the offensive line.
Yeah, I'm saying an overreaction because I looked at this team and was like, yeah, they're assembling talent, but that doesn't make you a good team. And I know that sounds like coach speak, but the reality is I think people looked at him because Baker threw, all those touchdown passes a year ago. They kind of put him in a class with guys like Ben Roethlisberger and other guys that are playing at the position. And I think you need to do it over a more sustained period of time and a longer period of time to kind of be in that type of class of guys. And so when I look at them, I just don't see them with a first-year head coach having to play. Just think about, just two teams in their division between the Steelers and the Ravens with guys that are seasoned head coaches that know how to win football games.
I completely agree with everything you said, but I do think it's funny because we're like, it's not an overreaction because I didn't think that. It's not an overreaction.
Well, I didn't. No. I'm on record as saying I was not. Delaney Walker and I, okay? I wasn't crowning them, Wendy.
Oh, you were okay, so it's not an overreaction because we were all right anyway. Ryan, what do you say?
No, I think it's an overreaction, and not because I didn't think that they were going to be good. It's an overreaction because it's still early. I do agree with Mike in the sense that you understood the offensive line was a place that this team was unproven, that this team could be hurt. But I do expect that for them to get better on the outside. I expect for Baker Mayfield to be better in the future. And I think Steve Wilks will understand how to get this defense to play better football than they did last week. This is the big week, right? Everybody talked about the implosion that would happen if this team didn't play well, if the principals didn't do a good job. Well, now we get to see them going into the next week against the New York Jets in prime time and what they'll do. And the one thing I do like from the post-game comments is two guys who are normally, or who we have pointed to the whole offseason as possibly being personality problems if things didn't go right, said the right things after the game, and that's Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham Jr. So now we look to see what it looks like on the field next week.
I think it's an overreaction. I do think they are going to be contenders, playoff type of contenders. Listen, that offensive line that Mike talks about, they did lose Kevin Zeitler, the guard, to the Giants in that trade for Odell Beckham Jr. But Greg Robinson played very well last year when he got kicked out of the game yesterday.
Kicked out, huh?
And they had the injury. Yeah.
Kicked.
Yeah. Exactly. And the guy who replaced him got hurt. They were shuffling that offensive line around, and that thing just unfolded. The discipline problem, 18 penalties, is on Freddie Kitchens.
Goes back to the head
That's
coach.
got to get cleaned up.
Yep.
But this team is talented. James Campen is a good line coach. I think they'll get their act together and make a run with the Steelers and the Ravens.
But more, let's keep something in context. They had protection problems at home. Wait till they go on the road. Ryan, you referenced next Monday night. That crowd will be in a frenzy at MetLife. So if they struggle protecting at home, imagine what it's going to be like with crowd noise on third down.
I think they'll win the game.
All right.
Oh.
We're not even picking yet. You can go ahead, more. It's fine. Just mark it down.
That's
All
next,
right.
that's
next week. That's right. We got 2 to go. Listen, I have a feeling we're going to have some unanimity here, but we'll see as we move on to the Cowboys because Jerry spent a lot of money. There were a lot of contracts, a lot of mouths to feed. He's done a lot of that with the exception of his quarterback, but he says that's imminent. So I'll say this on Overreaction Monday. Dak Prescott proved he is worth the big contract, the big money that appears to be headed his way, Mike. Overreaction?
Absolutely not. I've been saying this for months. What are we waiting on, Jerry Jones? For 20-plus years, I've been trying to get high-character, durable, productive, talented, winning quarterbacks. This guy checks every box. And let's go back to yesterday for a minute. New play caller in Kellen Moore. They were unstoppable. I love what they were doing in terms of the matchups. They have a great offensive line. And I think 2 statistics paint a great picture about Dak Prescott. He has the 9th best interception percentage, 1.7%, which is a top 10 number. And he's led the NFL in rushing touchdowns since he's been a starting quarterback in 2016. So that tells me he could beat you with his arm and his legs. And now you have Amari Cooper for a whole season. I think the Cowboys strategically made a mistake. I would have taken care of him before Jalen Smith, Lyle Collins, Zeke Elliott. It all goes through the quarterback. I know Zeke's a great player, but quarterbacks are really hard to find. I think what we saw yesterday was just the start of a really great season for him.
I agree with Mike on this. You mentioned check every box. I think there's some people that have been a little uneasy and say, okay, well, what kind of quarterback is he? The truth is, he's been awesome at quarterback. You referenced the numbers in terms of where he is, in terms of protecting the football, throwing touchdown passes, and being efficient in an offense that really before Amari Cooper, he didn't have a ton of talent around him outside of running back and the guys up front. But I think it goes beyond that in terms of here's a guy that literally has been the biggest bargain in sports.
Yes.
He made $620 or $630 grand last year.
Really.
He's a starting quarterback for the most valuable franchise on the planet. He has earned this. He deserves it. And I think he's waited too long for it. And I hope that he makes it more expensive for Jerry because he's done everything, showing up to camp, not being a problem, being a leader beyond that. And so he's checked every single box every year he's been the starting
and you're
quarterback.
right. It's not just the football. I mean, I think the Cowboys are the most valuable sports franchise, literally, that there is.
They are.
Which is it's not an overreaction. I'm on board. He's worth his contract, whatever he gets. It's not an overreaction because not only has he been underpaid, but this is a guy, Tom Shaw is a renowned trainer, and he used to work with the Patriots. And he also trains Dak in the offseason when Dak is not at the facility. The guy he told me that reminded him of Tom Brady the most since he's been training quarterbacks and other athletes. He's not a quarterback trainer, but he says Dak Prescott. He goes, his leadership ability is off the charts. Now, what's interesting is Stephen Jones, the vice president of the Cowboys, said today on his radio show, they're hoping that he kind of recognizes what Brady has done for the Patriots and take a little bit less money to keep that good team around him.
He's been taking less money.
They've never done that.
By the way, and I'm thinking he's already taken less money and he is worth whatever he can get with his agent, Todd France.
It's not an overreaction. He didn't take less money. He was drafted probably around where he was supposed to be drafted.
But he hasn't complained about getting less money.
Right, and he's outplayed that. And
Correct.
so now
Quietly,
he deserves to get what he's earned. Because this won't be a contract he's getting because you just want to give away money. He has earned this contract. Another thing I'll point to for Dak Prescott is he's really played well when pressure was on. Right, you come in, you have to replace Tony Romo. This guy is a legend in Dallas. You're a 4th-round pick, and you play out of your mind. And then there was a little lull, and it could have been because he didn't really have a lot around him. Then you get Amari Cooper, and it's like, okay, prove to me you can be the guy. And he does. He starts to carry this offense. The passing game actually becomes more efficient than what the run game was. In the playoffs, it was Amari Cooper and Dak Prescott with the big play against the Los Angeles Rams, and not Ezekiel Elliott. And now look to the first game this year. You don't want to give me a deal. You pay all of these guys around me, Jalen Smith, La'el Collins, Ezekiel Elliott. So now I have to go out and prove that I'm the guy that deserves the money. And look what type of game this guy plays. Look what type of production you get from Dak Prescott. That's the quarterback I want. Now you're going to have to pay the piper, though, because there are no hometown discounts.
Tell Jerry, hey, let's talk after the year. I don't want to be distracted.
Yeah, listen. You know what? We'll tailor this. I'm not worried about it. Let's circle back. Yeah, you don't want that, Jerry. Quarterback Nick Foles, by the way, his debut for Jacksonville lasted less than a quarter. Unfortunately, he suffered a broken clavicle when Chiefs defensive tackle Chris Jones drove him into the ground. It was on a 35-yard touchdown strike. Foles having surgery or had surgery today. He is out for the foreseeable future. And it is just a real change of course for the Jacksonville Jaguars and, of course, for Nick Foles. So how about this on overreaction Monday? The Jaguars are done. We're going to keep it simple, Mike, with that one. Yes or no?
That is an overreaction. And here's why. The old axiom, to win games, you have to be able to control the game. Can they do that? Yes. Leonard Fournette and a really good defense, in particular, a really good defensive line that I think will get better with Josh Allen. And look, Gardner Minshew led the nation in passing last year, and yesterday was 88%. And again, it was only one game, but they could still win a lot of games with that formula of running the ball, not turning over, and play good defense. Their next two games are against both the Texans and the Titans. So we'll know a lot more about this team in 3 weeks, but it's two division games, and they could turn this around pretty quick. But they have to make sure that they don't turn the ball over. And on defense, they have to tackle better than they did yesterday.
Yeah, I'll say it's not an overreaction, and I know how valuable Nick Foles is supposed to be. But Minshew came in and played 22 out of 24 he completed. Two touchdowns. Didn't have a lot of penalties with the offense. The game operations went on as usual. They did trade for Joshua Dobbs from the Steelers today, but he's there to be Minshew's backup. And I think this division, we know it's deep. Colts showed you they can play. We know what the Titans did, and we know that with the Texans, we think they can do. But I think that they will be in this mix until Foles comes back off IR.
Man, this thing over. And it's not an overreaction, and we can go on, cancel Christmas. And I think
come on.
The huge thing was this. Nick Foles was obviously supposed to, and he was going to, in my opinion, stabilize a position that they felt was the one thing they needed to get over the hump after being in the AFC Championship 2 years ago. But we are missing, this isn't the same team. This isn't the dominant run team that they were that year. This isn't the dominant defense that was shutting people out and turning the ball over at an explosive rate, putting pressure on the quarterback. They are different now. They need more from the quarterback position than they needed 2 years ago to get to the AFC Championship. This team isn't playing at that type of intensity that they were. And when Tom Coughlin left New York, a lot was said about the way he kind of wore on players, the things that he wanted an organization to do from a discipline standpoint. This team isn't disciplined. Mm-hmm. This team is throwing punches. This team is saying things we've never seen from players that were in Tom Coughlin type organizations. This is a team that's not following that path or that type of strategy in winning. And so I don't think it's just about Nick Foles. I just don't think they're that good.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ryan. I think you look at them defensively, I think that you still have a selfish, undisciplined team. I know it was the Kansas City Chiefs, but it was also a team that didn't tackle particularly well yesterday. And so I think that we view the defense in a different way than they actually are. As for Gardner Minshew, I was impressed with how he came in and played. But I think there are physical limitations with him as your starter for a, whatever it's going to be, at least a 9-game stretch or 8-game stretch, where, you know, he was so efficient and so good in college, but I think it was identity-wise offensively completely different than what Jacksonville wants to do and will do, and quite honestly is capable of doing on offense. And so I think that ends up being the challenge for him. He just does. You know, one of the nice things about Nick, and I think one of the reasons they were attracted to Nick, is when Nick has guys around him, and he can still push the ball down the field. Minshew doesn't have that ability.
But here's what we're going to learn sometime before Christmas, Ryan, is when you look at the AFC
That we will still have.
when you look at the AFC South from where we were 3 weeks ago, no Andrew Luck, now no Nick Foles, and we'll see how it plays out. Jacoby Brissett played well yesterday. They lost in a tight game, but Marcus Mariota still has a lot of question marks in his game. So my point is, in this division this year, it may not look pretty. It may not be how they drew it up in July, but they have ways they can win the game, and they can control it, again, with a good front seven, and if Fournette can take the next step and really be a dominant running back.
He looked good yesterday.
Well, I think for all of these teams, it's not going to be how they drew it up in July. At least that's the way that division is shaping up. Every week it's something. Week 1 full of outstanding performances, though. Coming up, we will debut our Sunday standouts from an action-packed day around the league, including a breakout rookie performance.